So good morning again, and welcome everyone. We're delighted to get to present our context, St. Mary's in Napa, California, to our friends here from different parts of the world. And we'll just go ahead and start with a little bit about the history and context, and then we'll open it up for questions. And for those of you watching the recording later, feel free to reach out and ask any questions you might have. Can everyone see the screen share?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Oops, there we go. So here's some photos of the inside of our church. I was installed as the rector of St. Mary's just a month or so, 2 months before the pandemic shutdown happened. So this was our last big indoor event before the pandemic, and a real chance to celebrate together. But it's also good shots of what the inside of our church looks like. The church, I'll talk a little bit later, was built in 1932, but this part, the altar, is from the original church, which was built in 1861. And I wanted to start with photos of folks from our church, because the church is, of course, the people, and we celebrate the way in which we are able to follow Christ together. These are some photos of our kind of efforts early in the pandemic to stay connected, to be able to continue in service and connection with one another. So Napa is located, you can see, in California. There's the red dot on the map is where this blow up is. The purple star is St. Mary's, and then the blue star there is our neighboring Episcopal Church, Grace, who we like to do things with, and they were involved earlier in this partnership as well. So Napa Valley is known worldwide for our wine and is a location of tourism. We have about 140,000 residents, and each year we welcome close to 4 million visitors to our valley. And the visitors have come even through the shutdown. We've continued to be a tourist destination. So these are some photos that people think of when they think of the Napa Valley. And these are very much real photos. This is definitely it's a beautiful place to live, but it's also an ordinary town. So I thought I would just grab these completely random photos of shopping places in Napa to show you as well. And I included, Napa locals will enjoy this, the picture of the two kind of favorite local liquor stores in town, which when I first moved to Napa was introduced to. They both have Italian takeout, and people have a little bit of a loyalty to one or the other. And also there's a local Napa dish called malfatti. Is that right? If I pronounced it wrong. Yeah, okay, good. Which is an Italian dish that was developed accidentally by one of these two stores when they ran out of pasta and they were trying to make ravioli. So it's the filling of ravioli in sauce. So yeah, that's just a little bit of the local color that folks that the tourists don't see, I suppose. Napa has been a place of continuous habitation by people for more than 10,000 years, making it one of the longest inhabited places in North America, continuously inhabited. And these pictures of the nature reserve along the river kind of just show you just some of the amazing natural beauty and why humans have been attracted to live in this place. But that also brings me to some of the more painful history of our valley, which is important to remember, and also I think part of our call as St. Mary's is looking and seeing and learning about that history and the way that it influences today and what it is that we can do about that, because we hope to become a place that more accurately reflects the community in which we live. So Vallejo and Oakland. So Vallejo is only 10 miles away, Oakland is 40 miles away, and they are the two most diverse cities in the United States. No ethnic or racial group has more than 50% representation in those cities. And in Napa, we are in the last census, 77% white, Napa County, 83%. So as you can see, just by the geographic distribution there, that is intentional. So, and it didn't have to be. So these are some pictures from the 1800s of the various different ethnic groups who lived in the Napa Valley. And this book on the left, The Hidden History of the Napa Valley, is one that has been a great resource for us in learning. There was a large Chinese immigration for both agriculture and the railroad. And the Napa Valley was peopled with a lot with thousands and thousands of Native Americans when white settlers first came in the gold rush period. African Americans also immigrated and did farming and owned farms in the Napa Valley, and were systematically excluded then from land ownership in other periods. So there's a deep history of unfortunately, of white supremacy and of division in our valley, which is something that we've really been committing ourselves to learn about and to be a part of, or be a part of correcting. So here is off to Selma on the left. This is a photo from our service book from 1964. Our rector at the time went to Selma and marched with Martin Luther King. And when he came back, he received death threats, and there was a lot of division in the community and some in the church. But he also inspired a generation of people, many of whom are still connected to or are members of the church, by his actions and by his bold statements of inclusion. And we've tried to educate ourselves about what's going on. We've had more than 20 members of our parish participate in a program called Sacred Ground, which is learning about racial healing and reconciliation and justice. And we've participated in marches in Napa after the death of George Floyd, and have joined with Grace Church, our neighbor, in producing what we called the Racial Reconciliation Academy, with a lot of different classes and courses for people to learn at different levels. And we also got to participate in a 5-month course. I think there were 10 of our parishioners who were able to participate in that, which was led by our local intertribal council about Native American trauma and healing in our valley. So it's something that's important to us to continue the learning on. I mentioned our first church was built in 1861, but the parish was established in 1858. Just a little bit about what was going on at that time. So 1858 was also about the same time that the first Chinatown was established in Napa. So the first Tao temple was also being built about the same time that our church was being built. 1861 was also the beginning of the American Civil War. So a time of tumult and uncertainty. It was only 11 years after California had become a part of the United States. 60 years later, in the aftermath of World War II and the global pandemic, St. Mary's embarked on dreaming about what might be next and thinking about a capital campaign, which they completed and began building I think they completed the capital campaign as the stock market fell in the Great Depression. The church was completed in 1932. Here's a picture of it after completion, and then I put a picture down there today of our same church. So I mention those things because we've been through a lot of adversity. This is a picture of the sanctuary after an earthquake in 2014, which required major repairs to the building for over a year. But we've also had fires, floods, and other disasters in our community, which has led to a lot of working together and resilience. So these are problems that none of us can face alone, no institution or individual, and they require us to reach out to one another and to work together. Here's just this is a map of the wildfires that we've experienced in the last 6 years, just in the last 6 years in our valley. Each footprint of the fire you can see just kind of comes up and touches another, so that just a vast quantity of area in our region has burned. Just in 2020, between these yellow fires here, Those happened in 2020 and burned 40% of the land area of our county. And as you can see, the glass fire was all right around and near our neighboring church, Grace St. Helena. And they had 12 parishioners lose homes in that fire. So despite all of these, we found in these times of disaster and pandemic that God has drawn us near, bringing new life, resiliency, and hope from the ashes. We're committed to being an inclusive and loving community, making room for diversity of opinion and being, and seeking to support one another in living our faith. And these are just a few recent photos of outdoor worship, an outdoor folk music jamboree that we had recently, and our Pride banner. And this is the last picture, and it's a rainbow, and this was from 2020. I took this picture after the first rains, after the fires. So what you can't see in the mist behind the rainbow is that that is the burn scar of the glass fire. And it just was such a beautiful double rainbow and such a sign of that hope that I wanted to end with that photo. So that's an overview, and I wanted to invite. I had asked Corky, Julie, and Russ to share some thoughts, but certainly any of you from Napa can. Which one of you would like to start?
I'll get started. Or I don't see.
Thank you, Corky.
Russ, did I step on your toes or no? Okay.
I'd rather you start because you were here well longer than I.
Okay, so yeah, of the three of us, and actually, I think Dick is on. So of the St. Mary's people that are here, I think Dick has been the longest, and I'm second. And so my experience with St. Mary's was way back in 1983. Actually, me and my wife, we were married by Father Stephen, the rector who was just previous to Robin. And he was here for some 30 some years. And he came in January of 83 and we were married in November. So I've been with, our family has been with the church since then. And as Robin has alluded to, we have grown a lot. And I'm going to say in the last 5 years, it's been that long since Father Stephen retired. We had a couple years of, or 2.5, 3 years of transition. And then Robin came 2 years ago, right, Robin? Has it been 2 years now? Yeah. So we've seen a fair amount of change in those, I'm going to say in the 5 years. All of it, I'm going to say is positive. And a lot of it is new outreach and getting, and by outreach, I mean just getting involved with the community and doing things with the community, and also our collaboration with Grace and St. Helena. A couple things that we haven't done in the past. But I think I'll finish my summary is I think it's a very vibrant community now. I'm just amazed at how we've stayed together, and we've actually grown in this pandemic time, these past 2 years. As Robin said, Robin came just a few months before the pandemic started. And, she had like 3 months of actual in person, and then we went into a year or 18 months of Zoom. And but we've come out a much stronger parish. And so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Corky. And Julie is a parishioner who's joined during the pandemic. So would love to hear your perspective, Julie.
Thank Thank you. Yeah, so my husband and I joined about a year ago. We moved from the Mid-Peninsula, the Silicon Valley area, because it's my husband working virtually, and I have my own little business where I can work anywhere. And all of a sudden we could move, stay in the Bay Area, and yet kind of move out of the crazy. And so we took that opportunity and are really excited to be here. It's really, really beautiful. We wanted to stay near our kids and grandkids, and yet kind of be in a beautiful location. And so we were looking for a church community that is vibrant and inclusive. It's really important to us to grow in our faith with a group of people who are actively following Jesus and really interested in what that means to live out our faith within our community, within the church family. And I think one of the important things is that everyone is valued and everybody is involved. Everybody is loved and welcomed. And I really felt that. My husband and I both really felt that. First with Zoom church, and just hearing Robin and Dawn's sermons that are so love focused, just really reach out to everyone. And the core message really seems to be the heart of Jesus. It just really seems to be everyone is loved, everyone is important. I know these days we're learning how important it is that our self-talk is positive, not negative. And when you're in an environment where the language toward everyone is very positive and inclusive, I think just it makes such a huge difference for our own mental health during COVID. I mean, just, from a very practical level, but also from a personal level, in following Jesus and trying to figure out, what are we here to be doing? How do we live this life in the world, but not of the world? That's really a challenge. And COVID, I think, made it more of a challenge because we were less connected. So my husband and I felt really connected. And one of the first things I had seen was Michael Curry, Mary, Harry, and Meghan. And we'd been looking for a church for a short period of time, and had actually attended a couple in Napa virtually, and even in person. I was shocked to find one church where masks were sort of optional, and that was a bit of a shock too. But then, what I heard Michael Curry say about life and about following Jesus and what it means to be human and what it means to live a life of love, I just was so impressed with his excitement about following Jesus. This is not, your grandma's church. This is inclusive, is loving, it's exciting, and it's very community centered. So it's important for us to have a church where the church family is very warm and inviting. And also, I think it's really important to have a church body that's reaching out into the community. And there are all sorts of opportunities, not all of which were happening during COVID, like the table, where people are being fed in the community who are vulnerable people. They're being taken care of. God said that true religion is looking after the widows and the orphans. And I think that's something that is really central to St. Mary's. And so that's another one of the main reasons that we stayed and why we love this church.
Thank you so much, Julie. Russ joined just before the pandemic, about 6 months before. Russ, what would you like to share?
Julie's a hard act to follow. So actually, we don't live in Napa. We live next door in Sonoma. And we had been attending, interestingly enough, a church that wasn't even in Sonoma. It was the church in Kenwood, and had been there quite active, and vestry and senior warden and such. And we had heard about the new rector coming to a town near you. and the new rector obviously was Robin. And we thought, oh, that would be good. Why don't we go and see what the new rector is all about? And so came on a visit the first day that Robin arrived. So we go back the same day. And quite frankly, we were transformed. We had known a church in the previous several years that had grown to be, this may be casting too strong a word to it, but a bit more going through the motions rather than living the faith. And that was an underpinning of let's go, but it wasn't, oh, we have to find a new church. It was simply, let's go see what else is there. And we found that what else is there is very much what Julie was commenting. It's not just living your faith, hearing a fantastic sermon, though that's exactly what happened, but it was sensing in the entire, at that time, a filled sanctuary, that the Spirit was there. The Spirit was clearly with us, and it was a moving experience, to say the least. We thought, well, this was very good. I wonder what really the people are like. And it happened that week, later that week, there was the annual gala of fundraising. And wouldn't you know, we happened to sit at the table of two people who are on this Zoom call, Peter and Nancy, and I have to give kudos to them because Peter is such a Pied Piper that he lured us in. If we hadn't been excited and involved before that moment, trust me, just sit with Peter and Nancy for a bit, and it's all over. But beyond that, was able to meet well beyond those two, easily, well over a dozen, meet in just a gala as a stranger. Almost everybody else had been there for many a year, as many have. And here we were, just brand new, showing up and saying hi. And it turned out that we engaged and were met with and came aware of so many open and frankly just a loving group. We came back the next day or 2 days later was Sunday service, the second Sunday service, and we thought, well, gee, was this just just a show? It just happened once, and it's an anomaly. No. It was not an anomaly at all. And quite frankly, I had on the following day, and 9 days later, I was leading the stewardship committee, and we were in the midst of stewardship, and we had our meeting. I gave a presentation. At the end of the meeting, I announced to fellow members of the community that we would be leaving our church and moving, once the stewardship campaign was completed, we would be moving to St. Mary's in Napa. Needless to say, that was a bit of a surprise to most, maybe even to us, but it was a path that we just knew in our heart we would follow. And frankly, Zoom, year and 9 months later, we, just as Corky had mentioned, we found that the church not only sustained that, it grew. And now I'm on the stewardship committee of St. Mary's and realize that we haven't even quite finished the campaign and we've already exceeded our goals, and have grown in pledging units, which fine, that's a monetary and a personal involvement, but it demonstrates the personal involvement in this church and the spirit of engagement that not only continues, has grown. And so that's why we're here.
Thank you so much, Russ. Sorry. There we go. Peter, Nancy, or Dick, would you like to add anything?
I will. I was on active duty in the military when I came to Napa in 1970. I bought my house and we were members of the church for less than 2 years, because normally I get to serve 2 years in the United States and 4 to 8 years outside of the U.S. We were here when Father Turnbull was here, who went down to Selma. We were gone for 11 years. We came back to Napa, and it was obvious that God had plans for St. Mary's, because there is no way that we should go from a stateside shore duty to another stateside shore duty without an intervening of at least 6 years overseas again. Got back to Napa, had the name of another couple that we had met their past rector, told us to look up. They had been attending another church in Napa, and the first Sunday we made it back, something told them to go to St. Mary's, and so we connected, and it was obviously a God doing that we should meet and get together. And we helped call Father Stephen, who was the rector for almost 30 years here before Robin. So God definitely has plans and has been working with St. Mary's Napa for a good number of years.
Thank you so much, Dick. How about Peter or Nancy? Anything to add?
Well, I was actually baptized at St. Mary's as an infant. My parents were married there. My grandparents had attended, so it's always been my lifelong church. I didn't attend it as a child because we lived in St. Helena, so we attended the other Episcopal church now run by Robin's sister in St. Helena, and came to St. Mary's for Christmas Eve because that was a big family get together. So I've been there all my life and seen different changes to it. I think since Peter and I moved back to the Valley in the 1990s and started attending, that the church has undergone, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, we had several excellent assistant priests that brought in new ideas of classes for the adults and different activities and tried to get us more involved in the community. And I think once we went in, Father Stephen retired and we had our interim priests, we started to work with more ecumenical other churches in the Valley to reach out to our neighbors. We had done things with the other churches in the Valley through the table. And at that time, I was the leader of the table. Right now, we're waiting for it to start back up. But we were working out of the Presbyterian church, and it was a different church group each week. So we started reaching out more to the community than we had in the past. And I think it's just continually grown. We now have Robin's very active in the community on different groups and trying to incorporate some of their services or knowledge about some of the different churches so that we're not just working in isolation like we did for a long time, and working with St. Helena so the Episcopal churches aren't two separate islands in the same valley. We have the same religion. We should have programs that are open to everybody. We did this, Peter and I did the Sacred Grounds, and we also did the Saskal Indian one, which was mixed of people from all over the valley. And it was nice to get different ideas and to have that exposure of not just having a class be your parishioners, but have your class be your community and get to know some of those. So I think we've opened our church to more people. We've started our Invite, Welcome, Connect committee to kind of make people feel more welcome. And I know when you go to Sunday church now or Saturday, you always see people you haven't seen before. They may have been on Zoom and are finally comfortable coming, but there's a lot of new faces, which I think bodes well for our future. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Peter, anything else?
What has been said is over the past 10 years, I've spent a little more time with scripture, and it started with, an adult education program here in the States, which is called EFM Education for Ministry. And we had a parishioner that had attended this program and felt so strongly about its benefits. He brought it to St. Mary's and has been a champion of this program for a long time. And as I delved into well, why was it important to me? I was going through a transition in my life after spending 34 years in the corporate environment. I retired, and the question that was gnawing at me is I had been a regular churchgoer, but this gnawing question was, what is it that I really do believe? And EFM, this program was my first step in trying to answer that question. And as I dove into scripture as I had never done in the past, it was a transformative experience. And I think everyone has mentioned as to how we are becoming more of the community, and we are encapsulating our lives in our community, and our definition of community is expanding. I think it's safe to say that in the past it was very much defined by the attendees that were part of our parish, but now it's grown, and our community has grown to our local community, the valley, the region, the country, and as you see folks across the globe here, the world. And that was transformative for me. And I think as our adult ed efforts in our parish have continued, it's the lessons I've learned are that scripture and God is transformative. Our lives, my life has been transformed by it. And I think we're called to live that transformation in community. And, and that definition of community has expanded for me. I've been blessed where I come to the Episcopal Church through a marriage of my parents. My family background is Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic, and faith was important to both of my parents, and they found the Episcopal Church as a way to continue to express that faith. So I grew up in the Episcopal Church, but very much a diverse family tree, if we look at it that way. And I've been in Napa since the mid 90s, and the transformation that I've gone through St. Mary's and some of the wonderful priest and rector that we have has just enhanced, what my faith has been and what I think God calls us to do. So it's should any of you travel to the States and come to the Valley, come. I want your experience to be much like what Russ was. And Russ, thank you for those kind words. I sometimes get the elbow from Nancy, say, Peter, slow down. But we'd be more than happy to see you in person here, and hopefully your experience will be similar to what Russ has experienced. We're blessed in our community, and I think our community was ready for the caliber of clergy leadership that we now have that has been able to seize on the resources of the parish, both the human capital and the desire for growth. So we certainly have the right priest at a time that's helping our church grow and in the spirit. And because of that, I think we're in a position to help make lives better.
Thank you, Peter. And I think that's all the folks from St. Mary's on the call. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording now so that we can have a conversation and answer any